You know that feeling when you check your bank account at the end of the month and you just sit there for a second? You worked 40, maybe 50 hours a week. You showed up, you did everything you were supposed to do, and somehow it still feels like you're barely keeping up. Meanwhile, you scroll through your feed and see people half your age talking about their third investment property or their passive income streams, and you can't help but wonder what you're missing. It's not jealousy, exactly. It's more like confusion mixed with this quiet frustration that nobody really talks about. Why does working hard feel like it's not enough anymore? Here's the thing most people won't tell you. The game changed, but nobody sent out a memo. The rules your parents followed, the ones that said work hard, save money, and you'll be fine, those rules are still technically true, but they're playing out in a completely different world now. And that gap between effort and outcome, that's not a reflection of your work ethic. It's a reflection of how wealth actually works in the modern economy. Let me explain what I mean. When you think about wealth, your brain probably goes straight to income, how much you make per year. And that makes sense because that's what we're taught to focus on. Get a good job, climb the ladder, increase your salary. But here's where it gets complicated. Wealth isn't really about how much you earn. It's about how much you keep, how much that money grows, and how much time you have to let it grow. And this is where the whole system starts to feel rigged. Think about it this way. If you're working a job, trading your time for money, there's a natural ceiling to what you can earn. You only have so many hours in a day. You can get better at your job, you can get promoted, but ultimately your income is limited by time. Now compare that to someone who owns assets, real estate, stocks, a business, whatever. Those things can generate income or appreciation while they sleep, while they're on vacation, while they're doing literally nothing. That's not because they're smarter or work harder, it's because they have access to a different kind of economic engine. And this is the part that feels unfair, because getting access to that engine usually requires having money to begin with. You need a down payment to buy property. You need capital to invest. You need resources to start a business. So if you're spending everything you earn just to survive, you're stuck in this loop where hard work keeps you afloat, but never really moves you forward. You're running on a treadmill while other people are on moving walkways. Same effort, completely different results. But here's where the psychology gets even more complicated. We live in a culture that worships hard work, and for good reason. Hard work matters. It builds character, it creates opportunities. But somewhere along the way, we started believing that hard work alone should be enough. That if you just work harder than everyone else, you'll inevitably succeed. And when that doesn't happen, when you work your ass off and still struggle, it feels like a personal failure, like you're doing something wrong, like everyone else figured out some secret you missed. That narrative is exhausting, and honestly, it's incomplete. Because wealth accumulation isn't just about individual effort anymore. It's about timing, access, education, geography, family background, and yes, a decent amount of luck. Someone who bought a house in 2010 during the financial crisis didn't necessarily work harder than someone who tried to buy in 2021 when prices doubled. They just had different timing. Someone who inherited money or had family support in their 20s didn't earn that advantage through effort. They were born into it. And someone who learned about investing early, maybe because their parents talked about it or they stumbled onto the right information at the right time, has a head start that has nothing to do with how hard they work. None of this is to say hard work doesn't matter. It absolutely does. But it's not the only variable in the equation, and pretending it is just makes people feel broken when they're actually navigating a system that was never designed to reward effort equally. So what changes when you understand this? When you realize the game isn't rigged against you personally, but the game has different rules for different players? The first thing that shifts is the pressure. You stop blaming yourself for not being where you think you should be. You stop comparing your Chapter 3 to someone else's Chapter 20. Financial progress isn't always visible, and it definitely isn't linear. Some people sprint in their 20s and coast in their 40s. Some grind in their 30s and finally break through in their 50s. There's no right timeline. There's just your timeline. The second thing that changes is your strategy. Once you understand that wealth comes from ownership and compounding, not just labor, you start thinking differently about money. Instead of only asking, how can I earn more, you start asking, how can I make my money work for me, even in small ways? Maybe that means automating savings, so you're investing before you can spend it. Maybe it means learning about index funds or retirement accounts, boring stuff that compounds over decades. Maybe it means thinking long-term instead of trying to get rich quick, because slow and steady beats dramatic and broke every time. Here's a practical way to think about this. Let's say you make $60,000 a year. After taxes, rent, food, insurance, and everything else, maybe you can save $500 a month. That might not feel like much. It might feel insignificant compared to people making six figures or buying rental properties. But here's the thing. If you invest that $500 a month consistently in a basic index fund averaging around 8% annual returns, in 30 years, you'll have over $700,000. Not because you became a financial genius, not because you worked 3 jobs, just because you understood consistency and compounding. Now, I'm not saying that solves everything. Life happens, emergencies happen, medical bills, car repairs, family obligations, I get it. But the mindset shift is realizing wealth isn't about one big break. It's about small, boring, consistent actions that most people ignore because they don't feel impressive in the moment. It's about playing a different game entirely. One where patience beats hustle, where ownership beats labor, where understanding systems beats out working everyone else. This doesn't mean you stop working hard. It means you work smart too, recognizing that your energy is finite and your time is the most valuable thing you have. So instead of trading more hours for more dollars, you start thinking about leverage. How can you create value once and get paid multiple times? How can you build skills that increase your income without increasing your hours? How can you position yourself in industries or roles where growth is exponential, not linear? This also means being honest about what wealth actually provides. It's not happiness, it's not fulfillment, it's not purpose. What wealth provides is options. The option to say no to things that drain you. The option to take risks without gambling your survival. The option to help people you care about. The option to live without constant financial anxiety. That's what you're really building toward. Not some fantasy lifestyle, just peace of mind and freedom of choice. Here's what nobody tells you when you're starting out. Wealth feels unfair because it is unfair. The system rewards capital more than labor. It rewards early advantages. It rewards access to information and opportunities that aren't evenly distributed. But understanding that isn't depressing, it's actually liberating. Because once you stop expecting the system to be fair, you can start navigating it strategically. You can stop feeling like a failure for not being rich yet. You can stop comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel. You can start focusing on what you can control. And what you can control is this: your mindset, your habits, your learning, and your consistency. You can control whether you invest in yourself, whether you seek out knowledge, whether you make decisions based on long-term thinking instead of short-term relief. You can control whether you beat yourself up or give yourself credit for showing up every day. You can control whether you let the unfairness paralyze you or motivate you to play a smarter game. So if you're feeling frustrated because you work hard and it doesn't seem like enough, I want you to hear this. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're not missing some secret everyone else knows. You're just playing a game where the scoreboard doesn't always reflect effort. And that's okay, because progress isn't always visible. It's not always fast, but it's always possible. Keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep building even when it feels slow. Because the person who understands systems and plays the wrong game will always outlast the person who burns out chasing quick wins. Wealth isn't about working harder than everyone else. It's about working smarter, thinking longer, and refusing to give up just because the results aren't immediate. You're doing better than you think. And the fact that you're here, trying to understand this stuff, means you're already ahead of most people who never question the system at all.